Thank you very much, everyone, for being here, and also to those of you who will watch the recording, because actually a lot more registered than I see are here now, but very warm welcome to all of you who are here. And I want to speak a bit about the program, Returning from Exile, Living in Presence, but the majority of the time I would love to hear from you what questions you have about the program. And let's just start with a very short, we can call it a meditation, we can call it whatever we want, but it's a very core part of the work. So just very briefly, if you wish, close your eyes. If not, absolutely have your eyes open. But either way, I invite you to take your attention, not your thinking, but your attention down into your body, as a very intentional action. Take your attention down into your body and simply start to pay attention to your breathing, just as it is. Your in-breath, your out-breath, the movements you notice, the sensations you notice, simply paying attention without any intention other than paying attention, noticing. The only intention I invite now is that you simply relax your out-breath a bit. You deliberately, consciously relax your out-breath, which may give you a sensation of dropping down more, of landing more in your sitting. And just as you are noticing all these sensations that are constantly changing, so you may have the beginning or the deepening of a sense of simply being here. Your mind may be very busy. That's fine. We're not trying ever to stop that, but we're just seeing if we can locate ourselves somewhere beyond our thinking, somewhere in a deeper core inside, which includes our thinking, but is not our thinking. If you have any particular emotions moving inside you, just see if it's possible to simply welcome them and allow them to be just as they are. Even just to breathe with them. Breathing, 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 sitting, sitting, sitting. And then, as a very simple invitation to practice, just consider for a moment how it would be that you stay in contact with yourself in whatever way you're experiencing now, even when you would open your eyes and look at the screen. So you would be practicing staying anchored in your interior while taking in the exterior. Just an invitation of a core practice. So whenever you're ready, please feel free to open your eyes if they've been closed. Good. Thank you. So this program is very dear to my heart because for the last 25 years, I've been working mainly with senior leaders. And in the last 6 years, I've started running intensive training for coaches. And that training for coaches will continue in the autumn with a 6-month program. And our leadership work is taking place mainly with specific companies or groups. So this program is dear to my heart because it is for everybody. It is for everybody. And it's really a kind of response to the times we are in. Because in many ways, we could say, or I could say, that there are kind of two big movements happening in our time. On the one hand, there is the normal paradigm of reality, which is increasingly in chaos and increasingly in disruption. And at the same time, there is everywhere, even in small pockets, a kind of birthing of something different, really a new paradigm. And it's not just a new paradigm, it's a new way of being, which is radically different from the existing paradigm, which I consider to be a state of exile. Why do I call it exile? Because in the prevailing paradigm, it's founded on a huge degree of disconnection, disconnection from our bodies, disconnection from our emotions, disconnection from each other, from nature, and dominated by thinking, because that's what we're educated into from a very young age, that thinking is the sovereign faculty. And so we lose touch with vast parts of ourselves that can live and experience the multidimensional nature of reality in a much more direct way. And that I call exile. And I think deep down we know it. And one of the symptoms of these increasingly chaotic times is that a lot of the senior leaders I meet and hear from the coaches I'm training are talking much more openly and much more vulnerably, speaking about how isolated they feel, how lonely they feel, how sad and frightened they feel. It's like those barriers that prevented that from being spoken are dissolving. So the exile is becoming a little bit more conscious. And that's really a very important awakening step. When we actually realize that the water we're in, like a fish suddenly realizes the water and suddenly realizes, wow, this water is a very, very limited and painful water because of its disconnection. So the returning from exile is a movement into what I call presence. And essentially, it's a process of, it's a bit like we took the USB plug out of whole parts of ourselves. And the process of coming into more and more presence is one of putting the USB back in. So, for instance, to our bodies, and to understanding to what degree we've left our bodies. If you look at someone, actually my wife sent me this morning a beautiful video of a 9-month-old baby who was just learning to crawl. And it was pure joy, this pure joy in this child and pure embodiment. So we all began life like that. And then as life met us, and in almost every case, met us in a way that was not fully supportive of us, we inevitably had to close down. And we closed down on a very physical level. We tensed and we lifted up out of our base. And then we're taught at school, think, data, data, data. And so we increasingly come to live up here. And so we see now a kind of plethora of bodywork, which is a response to that. All different kinds of bodywork that are available now, which are part of the journey, home for sure. So in the program, we work deeply with that in a very simple way. And we really practice. We really practice. What does it mean to be even here on Zoom? What does it mean to be embodied? It doesn't matter that we're on a screen. What does it mean really to be embodied? That's a core practice that we learn in the program and then continue to work with. And it's a lifelong journey in my experience. I woke up to embodiment when I was about my late 20s. My late teens, through various experiences I had with a famous Polish theater director in Poland. And I came from a very intellectual university background and thought I knew a lot of stuff. And I got to Poland and Jerzy Grotowski and was shocked that they had zero interest in everything I thought I knew, and just pushed me into strong body experiences. And that was the beginning of my understanding of what it means and how essential it is to really come home more and more and more deeply into our bodies. There is no presence without embodiment, and there is no end to the depth of embodiment. So it's a very core part of the program. And then, of course, it's about coming home to our emotional life and understanding, first of all, how much of our emotional life we've had to exile. We had to put into exile because we didn't have the kind of support that made it okay to feel. We had to close that down. We had to fit in with whatever environment we were in. And our environment taught us that some emotions are okay and many emotions are not okay. So there is a very gentle process of creating a beautiful feel together, which always happens when these longer programs online. It's beautiful what happens, that we start to feel safe enough together to just contact some of these emotions like fear, like grief, like anger, that we've often exiled. And the ability to turn towards them and bring them back into our embodied presence is hugely transformative. So that's a key part of the program. We look at purpose as well, also deeper questions of why am I here? What am I really here to contribute? What do I really love doing? What's my real passion in life? What am I serving? I wrote an article yesterday inspired by Bob Dylan's song, You're going to have to serve somebody. Yes, you are. It may be the devil or it may be the Lord, but you're going to have to serve somebody. And I've had that in my mind since he wrote it in 1979. And I finally sat down yesterday and wrote a whole article. So that's about purpose. That's about purpose. It's also about awakening to our intuitive function, which is huge and is a totally different way of knowing reality. None of this is about in any way excluding our thinking, but it is breaking the dominance of our thinking. And it's a response to Einstein's famous question, is your mind your master or your servant? Because in most people, it's become the master more than we even realize, meaning it's our primary navigational tool. And in this work, in living in presence, we begin to locate ourselves in a deeper essence of who we are, within which we have a more or less brilliant thinking mind that serves us brilliantly, but is not our primary way of being in the world. So our awakening our intuitive function happens very naturally. And that's our ability also to feel each other, which is another part of embodiment. How do we really feel each other? How do we really connect with each other in ways that the thinking mind has absolutely no possibility of doing? It's not its purpose. It's not its function. And last but not least, we develop a practice of being more and more connected to what we might call the transcendent, the great silence, the great eternal time, which every culture has written and experienced so deeply and given us so many guidelines about. So the program is a very comprehensive. We can even think of it as a kind of rewiring, a recoding inside, so that whatever profession you're in, it could be that you're a leader, it could be that you're a coach and don't necessarily want to do a 6-month training, but it is also for anyone in any profession or indeed any walk of life. Maybe that you're primarily a parent. So the program is considered and constructed in such a way that it is of central relevance to anyone who feels called to attend. And anyone who feels called to attend is someone who wants to find and discover together how can we navigate and contribute to these troubled times in a deeper and deeper way. How can we be part of something new that is birthing? So that's my overview to the program, and I'd love to take any questions you have now of any kind, including practical ones. Just put your hand up electronically if you wish, or just yeah, Wojciech, please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Nicholas. I actually have practical questions to begin with.
Great.
So, how much time was required? How do the meetings look? Is there any homework? How often do we meet? And so how does the 6 months, more or less, hours a week, a month, are needed to devote to the program?
So first of all the details are on the website. But for now, as best I can remember, Dana, maybe you can help me out with this. Dana, I'm going to hand over to our managing director who has all those details to hand. Dana, can you give the details of the program? You need to unmute.
I am unmuting. Yeah. Hi, Wojciech. Greetings from Prague. We're starting running the program at the end of June, and it runs through 5 months, if I'm not mistaken. And there are the dates starting 27, 28 June. And Monica, if you can paste the link to the website, I was about to do it. And then there are 2 dates in, 27, 28 June, and it's every time for 3 hours. So there are 2 consecutive days, and in each of them, each month, it's 3 hours a day. So it starts 27, 28 June, then July 11, 12, August 1, 1st, 2nd, September 12, 13, September 26, 27, October 17, 18, November 14 and 15. And it starts at 3 o'clock Central European time, which is Berlin, Prague time. And this is the core pillar. And then
and Dana, just say those are live sessions with me.
These are live sessions with Nicholas.
They're all on a Friday and Saturday. So 3 hours on the Friday, 3 hours on the Saturday.
Yeah.
And what happens, because we're going into vacation season, and I'm actually off to Japan with my family.
Right.
And we're on the flight actually on the 10th and 11th, I think. So that would be totally impossible. So what happens if you miss it? Yeah, is it something that then there's a taping and you watch it?
So on all of these longer online programs, everything is recorded. We have an online platform where all the recordings are put and where we can also have dialogue together and also share material. So everything is recorded. And although it's obviously better to join live, Many people can't join every session live. So it is fully recorded and available for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there is a dedicated space where all the material, all the background information, all the communication can happen. So it's in one place. And also, so part of the program, not only the classes or the gatherings with Nicholas, but it's also small groups, meetings, smaller groups where specific topics that are arising for each of you or in the group are discussed. And it's actually each month group. And then the part of a program is also 5 individual one-on-one sessions, online sessions with our senior coaches. We call these sessions matrix sessions, and they are of 30 minutes and are really focused on embodied way how to work one-on-one individually. So there is individual work that then translates to the collective work. So it's a proven concept now from the latest programs, trainings that works the best, the combination of individual small groups and a class.
So is it that, do I understand correctly, Dana? One thing is, let's call it the live meetings. If you can't make it, you can watch the recording. And then
Correct.
additionally, there's also one-to-one sessions which are included in.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the
small groups.
the small mentoring groups are led by me or one of my senior team.
Yeah.
So the main thing to understand, and this is what we've really developed, is that there's a lot of holding throughout the program. And that's very, very important online. And we just finished the 6-month training, and people have been amazed by how held they felt all the way through it. So we design it very much with that in mind. And the matrix sessions are something I developed about 4 or 5 years ago. We've done 600 or more now, also with some big organizations.
More, much more. It's
Oh,
around 1,000 by now. Yeah.
oh wow. Okay. Oh, I'm getting updated. And they are very, very powerful. They're not like a normal coaching session because it's part of this movement of the whole program that we get out of narrative. We get out of a constantly conceptual version of reality. So, for instance, in a matrix session, you get a little instruction beforehand which tells you you'll have 2 minutes to present what topic you'd like to look at. And we stop you after 2 minutes, and then we work very directly with what's happening inside you, what's happening in your body, what's happening in your emotions, what's happening in more subtle dimensions of you. And that's what we work with. And if you go into narrative, we gently say, no, let's come back to what's really happening. And they are astonishingly powerful.
Wow. And you're leading, Nicholas, all of the meetings, all the dates that I just saw.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
leading all of them, yeah?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a chance that you would do the one-to-one if someone.
No, I don't do those. No, but I have an amazing team of coaches, really amazing.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Sad, but fair enough.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Anything more for check?
No, I think it's quite clear, to be honest. I mean, I guess it's a bit of a journey. So I think
It's a bit of a
that I
check.
understand it. It would be difficult to try to explain everything now and visualize because it's a journey which.
Right. Yeah, it is. It is a journey. That's exactly what it is. Also, when you look on the website, you'll see each module has topics.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a journey, and it's a kind of, I feel called to this. I'm ready to go through some serious development because it's a journey of self-development.
Sure.
It's a self-development that, in my mind, meets the times we are in. Because we need to become stable points in the middle of the storm.
Sure.
And we're used to, in many ways, we're used to finding stability through our thinking. And it's very interesting the amount of leaders I work with who say, well, my orientation points are not working anymore. Of course they're not, because anyway, they were not solid. So we're looking at developing a much more solid, deeper interior that is absolutely not dependent on what's happening outside. Because if we are looking for stability based on what's happening outside, we are truly lost. We have to go and develop, we have to go into and develop a much deeper center within ourselves. And to do that in community, in group, is a powerful journey indeed. I will honestly, it's for many people, it's life-changing.
Great. And is there an optimal size of the group? Like for sure, let's say if it's below 5 people, you don't have enough energy, but if it's above 20, it gets...
No, in this program can take larger numbers than that. So yeah. I mean, I'm not going up to 1,000, which I know some online teachers do, but anything up to 100 will be perfectly fine.
Interesting. Okay.
And that's because of the way we're structuring it with these small groups and as well.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. Anyone else like to ask anything? Yes, Alan, please. Hi, Alan. Just unmute yourself.
Hi, Nicholas.
Hi.
First a question and then an observation.
Please.
These small groups, are we talking 3 or 4? Or we're
talking usually 6 to 8 people.
2, 8.
On the total number, maximum 10 people.
Okay. And I have, through one of your coaches, had a couple of matrix sessions.
Have you? Okay.
You were not exaggerating.
Oh, really? I'm glad to hear that. That's very good. Thank you for sharing that, Alan. Yeah. That's your observation. Very good. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, the small groups are 90 minutes, and they, as we see, they're really important because we can also do individual work sometimes within those small group meetings. And what we find, and I'm far from the first person to say this, is that when we're in a smaller group and I or whoever's leading the group work quite deeply with one person, it's truly for everybody. It's amazing. Because the whole field opens when someone opens to a deeper part of themselves, whether it's an emotional part or a higher part, it opens something for everybody. It's an amazing process, and that builds and builds and builds. So then anytime we next meet as a group, the field is already much more open. It's fascinating. And although I love working in person, obviously working online is something I also love. And it's surprisingly powerful. Good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you very much. I saw there were 1 or 2 written questions.
Yes, one of them is if you're preparing anything in person, residential. You speaking about in person and online.
Maybe you can answer that, Dana.
Well, at the moment, we have specific programs for coaches training for transformational coaching, and in-person retreat is part of that program. We are not at this very moment preparing a retreat for group that would be for returning for exile or similar. However, what usually happens is when the program is strong and the group is committed, we agree retreat in person, because it's usually more complicated to get everyone in person. So we're starting with because it's a new format, so we're starting with online, and we will see if there would be interest to organize in person.
Yeah, and that actually reminds me of the fact that one of the beauties and power of these online programs is that we have people from all over the world. And
Actually, from West Coast to US to Australia and New Zealand.
yeah,
And people in Australia are actually waking up in the middle of the night, sleeping during the day to attend. So that helps that everyone can attend. And
That's why we say 3 o'clock. I mean, it would be difficult to find a time that everyone could get up during the normal waking hours, but there are always a few people from Australia, and mostly they attend live, which is something like 2 a.m. or something.
To that point, at the same time, is that we are working with a few people in New Zealand now, and if there will be, and Nicholas will have webinar. There is already, because Nicholas had transformational coaching program a couple of years ago for Australia and New Zealand and this time zone of the world, that there is a possibility that if there is enough of interest, there could be simultaneously in this time zone a separate program. So it depends. It depends if there is an interest. We could be running something for 2 different time zones.
I see there's a beautiful question from Guia Lane. Excuse me if that's not the best way to pronounce your name. Guilin, would you want to come on with your camera, or do you prefer not to? Otherwise, I'll just speak to your question. So the question is, hi. Yes, unmute yourself by all means. Hello.
Hello, Nicholas. Thank you so much. I unfortunately cannot be on camera.
No worries.
Technical difficulties. Thank you for taking my question, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you. So if I may, I'll read your question. What about these polycrisis times are particularly disturbing to you that inspired this journey? I'm not so disturbed, actually. I'm more totally fascinated to see what has been obvious for quite some while, but is getting more and more acute, which is the foundation of disconnection on which our culture is built. Disconnection and alienation. And every corporate group I work with, every senior leader I work with, we begin in numbness. We begin in chronic numbness. And that's been normalized. So to me, that's the foundation of a lot of the trouble we're in. That and the fact that we are also in a chronic paradigm of separation and self-interest. Self-interest and me becomes the predominant kind of navigational foundation. And actually, I was researching just the other day because I knew that many of the old wisdom traditions have seen this coming. So I was just researching the other day for some writing about this, and I found some amazing stuff. So I'm going to read one, and I think this will also speak to you. I'm sorry, I hope Julian is the right way to pronounce your name. So this is something I came across. Many Native American prophecies, particularly those of the Hopi, Cree, and other nations, speak of a dark time for humanity, marked by environmental destruction, social division, and spiritual crisis. Wow. So they saw this. They saw this coming. These prophecies describe a world suffering from greed and disrespect for the earth, where the air and water are poisoned, animals die, forests wither, and chaos and war are widespread. Wow, this was prophesied. The Hopi, for example, warn of a period when leaders are corrupt, people lose their way, and great wars and disasters spread across the globe, culminating in a time of purification or destruction unless humanity changes course. And you probably saw the news that there's a new possible war starting between India and Pakistan, which could be very serious. The Cray legend of the Rainbow Warriors foretells that when the earth is sick and dying, people of all races will be given a choice between two roads. One of continued destruction leading to great suffering, or one of unity, peace, and restoration. Despite the dire warnings, these prophecies also offer hope, suggesting that after the darkness, a new era of harmony and renewal is possible if people come together, respect each other, and return to a sacred relationship with the earth and all living things. So, Julaine, I hope that speaks to you a little bit, and I'd love to hear from you if you can unmute.
Yes, it speaks to my heart. I just feel my heart just kind of breaking and a sense of affirmation. I've felt this, all that you shared, and to hear it articulated. I can't put into words what's happening in my body. I know embodiment is such a key to this program. I feel it in my body, and I also appreciate your precision in using the word fascinated in lieu of disturbing. That was very healing to me as well too. So thank you very much. You more than responded to my question. Thank you.
Thank you. I feel very touched listening to you, feeling you. Thank you. Yeah, in my journey, I had a big awakening experience when I was 16, which I was not looking for at all. But I had an awakening which showed me what a small version of reality we got used to living in. So from then on, that became my kind of guiding focus, was to explore what that meant. For 20 years with actors, helping actors move into the deepest possible openness they could. And then the last 25 years with leaders. So I've been in this journey for a long time, and I see how never-ending it is. And it's all got clearer and clearer in one way. The degree of crisis long before these days started, which are really, so evident we can't really turn away anymore. So I am fascinated, especially when I read these prophecies which saw that this is where humanity would get to. And I've done enough work, I think, inside, far, far from finished, where I'm kind of outside the prevailing paradigm and work right in the core of it. But I'm no longer hypnotized by it. So this is my journey, and this is my offering, therefore, of a program like this. So please, if anyone else would like to speak.
I can add one detail.
Please.
It's more to the logistics and summary, just for to imagine how much time is it in teaching. So Nicholas, I just pulled the hours. It's 42 hours of teaching personally with Nicholas in those teaching sessions. It's 4.5 hours time in the small groups, and it's 5 individual sessions. So you have an idea in hours what this program entails. Yeah,
That's great. Thank you very much. So it's a lot. And pricing wise, we've made every effort to keep it as reasonable as possible.
And it links to question that if I remember well, Hannah, if she's still, yeah, Hannah, you ask, right, if there is a scholarship. We haven't established official scholarship and scholarship scheme. However, that every time we have specific pricing for South Africa standardly because of the exchange rate, and we cooperate with a lot with a company in South Africa, and we always have, if there are any personal individual requests, we consider those. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. There was a question that came in before, which I'll just speak to for a moment. Will this program provide a formal toolkit that can be applied in professional or community settings? So it all depends what you define by a formal toolkit. It's not like a manual. None of my teaching is ever like a manual, which I believe is one of the powers of it. At the same time, it's a very comprehensive set of practices and of inner evolution, where it becomes clear what it means to move through the world from a different place in oneself. So I would say the answer to that is yes, but it may not be a formal toolkit such as what one might normally think of as a formal toolkit, but a lot of practices and a lot of real implementation in actual real life. As I do with leaders. When I work with leaders, it's deep developmental work, and it's always focused on, so how are you going to show up? How are you going to show up tomorrow? Interestingly, I'm very soon going to work with a group of trainee priests. And I spoke with their head recently, who's an amazing man, and everything he said about what he wishes for them, I said to him, well, that's exactly the way I speak to leaders. And he'd already made my book the #1 on their training reading list. So very interesting intersection of worlds there. Good. Is there anything else? Alan, again. Yes, please.
Yes. Nicholas, the question came to mind with that question on practices and toolkits and so on. And it's just for information, whatever the answer is fine, do we take our own notes so we learn the practices by keeping our own records of them? Are there notes that you provide and say, here's a practice of meditation?
Right.
That's where you can refer to when you sort of say, I can't remember what I need to do. I've got some reference point to go to. How does that work?
That's a really good question, Alan. So first of all, some of the core practices are very simple. So you will hear them over and over again, and we will practice them over and over again, and you will take notes. For instance, even at the beginning, we touched on the beginning of a foundational practice of presence, which is, how can I be fully here, grounded and embodied, at the same time fully with the outside? That's a foundational, profound practice of presence. And there are ways of anchoring that. There's a whole practice that I call the backward circle, which is in my book, but we practice it. Because it changes everything. It changes everything in your moment-to-moment experience and how you are with people, for instance. And then we begin to see how much of the time we're out we come out, especially when we have to interact with the world. And we really practice correcting that moment to moment to moment, because it's kind of clear to me when that's happening. So we can immediately say, just a minute, let's see where you've centered right now. What does it mean to come right back into yourself? And can we meet each other from that field of openness? That's a game-changing practice. So is there a manual about that? No, but you will fully understand it, and you will fully practice it, and you will notate it in your own way. And if you need, the recordings are available to listen to. Yeah. And there's my book where a lot of the practices, a lot of the core practices are there, even though that's a leadership book.
Thank you.
Thank you. I understand your question. Yeah, because in some ways it's true to say that a program like this is as much a program as it is a kind of activation. So it's also an activation inside us. So we move into different frequencies, and the frequency we're in affects everything about how we respond to the world, how we even perceive the world. So by being together, by immersing ourselves in the presence that naturally develops in our meetings, and that hopefully also transmits through me, there is a vibrational change inside us that gradually happens. And that's a foundational part of the program. And there is no manual for that. It's a process that happens. That's why working title of my book is To Be a Blessing, because I often teach now to leaders that your highest offering is your vibration. Your highest offering as a leader is what you transmit into a space or into a room or into a meeting. And that's got nothing to do with your knowledge or your strategic thinking capabilities, which we assume are high. It's to do with the quality of your presence and how embodied you are and how coherent you are inside, and whether your language and your words are matched and aligned with your emotions and your embodiment, because most of the time we're speaking in a way that's more fragmented. It's like we are here and our speaking is somewhere out here. Even when you ask most people, how are you feeling right now? Most of the time, what you get is a blah, blah, blah out here. So one of the things we practice together, which is a very powerful part of the work, is that we learn to speak in a more aligned way together. And that becomes something we take into our lives. And that's also game-changing, because we really see how many conversations are not aligned. And yet we act as if they are. We act as if they are because we've normalized conversing in a way that is not aligned. It just seems normal, so we don't question it until we do.
And that requires a vocabulary that's
Exactly.
difficult to access.
Well, it's actually very simple once we begin to really practice it. It's like we've obfuscated so much. People often say about my work, there's a profound simplicity in it, but it's not a stupid simplicity. It's a simplicity that is the other side of a lot of complexity and many years of traveling the path. But we need to get to some profound simplicities, because there are profound simplicities and there is no need to overcomplicate things. And our thinking mind often overcomplicates things.
Thank you.
Nicholas, we have beautiful question.
Yeah.
What is leadership success in this program?
Leadership success. What does that mean even? What is leadership success?
Hannah, do you wanna make
Yeah, I do. I thanks, Nicholas. This is such a lovely discussion.
Good.
So for me, it's about authenticity and integrity of your leadership.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you know, it's about having the captain and the crew actually working together in an organization as well
Right.
as yourself. So
Right.
presence and being present as a coach, mentor, guide, parent, how are we present to ourselves?
Mm.
What presence are we doing? It's about the quality of how we're turning up to ourselves and what's in front of us. And
Yes.
that's a huge thing when you're potentially disembodied yourself and you're sleepwalking to that disconnection. Yeah. And then something comes along in life and wakes you up and thinks, this is actually what real leadership is about. And it's possible. I think it's highly possible that all of this is within your book that I've read back to front many times.
Mm.
I'm interested in this relationship of success of leadership now in these times when we're talking about trauma-informed approaches. Yeah.
Yes.
To
Yeah.
organizations and teams and leaders at all levels,
Mm.
who are potentially in a state of not just disconnection but disassociation. Okay.
Right. I agree.
So in those circumstances, what is good enough instead of idealistic success? If we're having conversations with leaders, what are we actually saying to them? What is the new model of success? Is it about quality, not quantity? I'm curious.
Well, you're asking a lot of questions,
I am.
and in a way, I can't answer because it's not so measurable what you're asking. But what I would say is that so there are certain benchmarks that I would call good leadership. Let's speak about two. One of which is how well do I really listen to people? Really listen. Because when I ask a group of leaders, do you remember the leaders who you felt really listened to you? They all do. And they're not very many of them. Because really being listened to is not just that I hear your words. It's that you feel I'm feeling you, even though you might not articulate it like that. But you walk away from an interaction with an inner feeling of she or he met me. That's a benchmark of leadership. Now, but for that's why my whole emphasis in all my leadership work, but also here, is that our first priority has to be our own inner development. Because my capacity to be present enough to listen to you is not a trick. It's not even a skill. That's why it's not a manual. It's based on how present am I and how much space inside me do I have for you. So the amount of space I have inside me depends on my degree of embodiment. It depends on the degree of my emotional integration, so I don't have whole parts of me that are frozen. And it depends on the degree of inner spaciousness I have, which is a more mindful meditative practice. So if I'm going to be a leader who can listen to you and who can, after a meeting with me, you will walk away with an inner sense of, wow, he got me. He listened to me. He felt me. Then I have to do a lot of inner work for that. So that's a benchmark. The other thing I was going to say, I almost forgot. The other thing I would say about leadership is what kind of space can you hold? Like in a meeting. first of all, do you notice that there's a lot of anxiety in the room? Because if you don't, you're really stuck in your own bubble. But let's assume you actually notice there's a lot of anxiety in the room. Can you hold a space in which we could just say, hey, let's acknowledge that anxiety. I feel it. We're all feeling it. It's okay. Let's make that okay. So that's a small example of holding space. But this is true. You see, this is why what I believe this program is for everybody. Because what I've just spoken about is for everybody, whether you're a parent, a nurse, this or that, or whatever. These are fundamental parts of what it means to lead a good life and to lead a life that is a contribution to the greater good, not a life where I'm stuck in my own bubble.
Yeah. It's where my heart meets yours, Nicholas.
Oh, thank you, Anna. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And we get out of our own way.
Yeah. But to get out of our own way, we have to go through a journey of seeing what our way is.
Oh, well, yeah, I've been on that journey. Oh,
Yeah,
hell
I'm
yeah.
sure you have. I'm sure you have.
About that another time.
Yeah.
But this is what makes me passionate about. I think it's important that we raise these because this is about how we measure what success looks like when we're working with organisations around coaching.
Right.
They're looking for results. So what do we mean by a result? And often some of these things are intangible. However, they're not in the sense that how you make someone feel. It's not always about numbers and percentage and that. Of performance-based stuff and opening it up, you know.
Absolutely.
Only using half of what we have. This is the innate stuff. Thank you. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful to speak with you. Reminds me of another of Einstein's wonderful quotes when he said, what counts cannot always be counted, and what can be counted doesn't always count. He was a great mystic, Einstein. Thank you so much, Hannah.
Thank you.
Good. Well, I think we've actually arrived perfectly on the hour. So thank you very, very much. If any of you have any more questions, please write us. And we're always happy to dialogue with you. And if you feel called to join us, then I very much look forward to working with you. We all do. Dana, any final words from you? No.
Thank you very much for your presence.
Sorry, just one last technical. Is there a date, a final date to sign up and do the payment to join the group? Is there like a deadline type of thing?
No, actually, we don't have deadline.
Okay, so it's more or less to do it just before the first meeting, yeah?
Ideally, yes.
Okay. Fair enough.
We would wish for that.
Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for your time, and also to those who will be watching the recording. Thank you. Bye for now.